very habitable man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
They put this forward in an aggressive and fast-paced way. And now they're saying, well, we need witnesses. After 31 or 32 times you said you proved every aspect of your case. That's what you said. Well, you didn't. You said he just said he did. Well, then I don't think we need any witnesses.
That is the sickest descent into madness I have ever heard in my life. The House of Representatives indicted the president. And now the defense for the president is saying, so you indicted him, now have a trial without witnesses. Because you indicted him, you should have a trial without witnesses. Does anybody think that that makes any sense in our American system of justice? So let's say you're indicted for something. Doesn't matter what it is. And the attorney general of your state, he indicts you for whatever, and now you're on trial, and the position of the state is that you should be put on trial without any witnesses or documents. What the?
Yes, we are a more than fallible democracy, and we don't always live up to our ideals. But when we have a president who demonstrates corruption of his office, who sacrifices the national interest for his personal interest, unlike other countries, there's a remedy. And so, yes, we don't always live up to our ideals, but this trial is part of our constitutional heritage, that we were given a power to impeach the president. I don't think a trial without witnesses reflects adversely on the Chief Justice. I do think it reflects adversely on us. I think it diminishes the power of this example to the rest of the world. If we cannot have a fair trial in the face of this kind of presidential misconduct. This is the remedy. This is the remedy for presidential abuse. But it does not reflect well on any of us if we are afraid of what the evidence holds. If this will be the first trial in America where the defendant says at the beginning of the trial, if the prosecution case is so good, why don't they prove it without any witnesses?
Really?
That's not a model we can hold up with pride to the rest of the world. And yes, Senator, I think that will feed cynicism about this institution, that we may disagree on the president's conduct or not, but we can't even get a fair trial. We can't even get a fair shake for the American people. We can't, oh my God, we can't hear what John Bolton has to say. God forbid we should hear what a relevant witness has to say. Hear no evil. That cannot reflect well on any of us.
It doesn't, and it will be used as precedent against you in the future. That trials now in the United States of America that are supposed to happen after an indictment can be held without witnesses. Did you want to set that precedent? Because that is what is going to happen at the end of today. Maybe 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe they'll do it under the cover of darkness. Maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. But it's going to happen. And the reason why they don't want to hear from witnesses is because the president is guilty. The reason why they don't want to call John Bolton is because as this trial has been, attempting to get underway. Remember, the trial isn't even underway. No witnesses have come to testify. No documents have been admitted. Nothing has happened that would look like, sound like, smell like, taste like, be like a trial. Nothing. They're debating whether or not to have witnesses. That's all that has happened, is a debate about whether or not a trial is supposed to have documents and witnesses admitted. Relevant documents, relevant witnesses, witnesses that could go and show the president is innocent. Why not? Or witnesses that could testify that the president pressured Ukraine to give him dirt on his political opponent against the interests of the national security of the United States, which is what Bolton would testify to. It is whatever. And you know what's really creepy? Each and every day since Sunday, the New York Times has been releasing more and more and more of John Bolton's manuscript. And today, while the Democrats were making an argument for witnesses, they released yet more of John Bolton's book. This is previously undisclosed, but it is categorically true. Mr. Bolton, John Bolton, there's plenty to say about his silence here, but Bolton described in his book a 10-minute conversation that happened in the Oval Office in May. Now, you know, they all say, oh, this is all about a phone call. That phone call was July 25th, right? July 26th is when Donald Trump calls Ambassador Sondland and says to him, I only care about the big stuff, and the big stuff isn't the war in Ukraine. The big stuff is I want that dirt on the Bidens. And that was the day after the call. But the day of the call is July 25th, and the Republicans have been saying it's all about a phone call. No, this happened in May, early May. In early May, there was a meeting in the Oval Office. That meeting included Rudy Giuliani, Mick Mulvaney, and John Bolton and the President of the United States. And in that meeting, Trump was fixated on getting this dirt on Ukraine, from Ukraine on Biden, because that is when Biden announced for president. And back then, in May, Biden was leading in the polls. And Bolton laid out Trump's fixation on these conspiracy theories that Ukraine tried to undermine his chances of winning, that Ukraine had hacked into the DNC for some reason. I mean, he makes no sense. And so Bolton started to object to these debunked conspiracy theories, as did, you know, David Bossie. I mean, not David Bossie. What was that guy's name? Remember, he said that they kept trying to disabuse the president of these conspiracy. Well, they couldn't do it. Anyway, this is when apparently Bolton told Fiona Hill that Rudy Giuliani was a hand grenade that was going to blow everybody up. He repeatedly, in this book, Bolton says that Trump repeatedly made national security decisions that were contrary to American national security interests, and that he was granting all these crazy favors to autocrats like Erdogan in Turkey and Xi in China and Putin and all of them. And this is early May, early freaking May. Rudy Giuliani had just been successful in smearing Marie Yovanovitch with his clients. His clients, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman. And now Donald Trump was targeting somebody else. Now Donald Trump was going after George Kent. You remember George Kent? He was a key witness in the House manager's case. George Kent, who was like, he was like Lieutenant Dan. That's how I explain him to you. You know, remember Lieutenant Dan from Forrest Gump? And Lieutenant Dan had always had a member of his family in the military since the Revolutionary War. He had a member of his family in the Revolutionary War. He had a member of his family in the Civil War. He had a member of his family in the Korean War. He had a member of his family in World War II. And now he had a member of his, Lieutenant Dan was in Vietnam, right? And it was a tradition. He was supposed to die on the battlefield. But instead, they blew his legs off, remember? And that's why he was so depressed. Well, so George Kent has that same history in his family. There has never been a Kent that isn't involved in the State Department or in public service to the United States in some diplomatic capacity. Well, in this meeting, Rudy Giuliani says, you got to get rid of George Kent. He knows everything. And he plants this conspiracy theory in Trump's head that George Kent is part of a Soros conspiracy. Turns out George Kent was not part of a Soros conspiracy. Neither was Marie Yovanovitch, but Giuliani succeeded. And George Kent actually testified, and he was a key witness, but they were going to smear him next.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
There have been 17 witnesses. We're talking about now additional witnesses that the managers have put forward and that Democratic leader Schumer has discussed. He's discussed 4 witnesses in particular, as if this body would, if it were to grant witnesses, would say, yes, you get those 4 witnesses, and the White House and the President's Council gets what? Whatever I want. That's what he said, Mr. Schumer, whatever I want?
Yeah.
Here's who I want. I want Adam Schiff.
All right.
I want Hunter Biden.
All right.
I want Joe Biden.
Okay.
I want the whistleblower. I want to also understand there may be additional people within the House
Oh, my God.
Intelligence Committee that have had conversations with that whistleblower.
You're a sick freak. Okay. I have to tell you, this is a descent into constitutional madness, okay? They are interested in conducting a different trial than the one that needs to be conducted. They are not interested in a trial of Donald J. Trump's conduct, of Donald J. Trump's corruption, of Donald J. Trump's extortion attempts on Ukraine, a country involved in a war. No, they're interested in a trial against Hunter Biden, which, you know, go indict Hunter Biden and then have a trial. But I promise you, if you indicted Hunter Biden, his trial would have witnesses and documents. This is so dangerous and sick and stupid. And by the way, if you check my Twitter feed, and I really think you need to, because we've been posting all these things as this has progressed to this unbelievable stage of Republican sycophants who are afraid of the president's bullying. That's how snowflake the Republican Party is. They're afraid of him, afraid he will support a primary challenger, and they don't believe they got what it takes to defend themselves against somebody that would somehow insert themselves into their uncontested election. They might have to fight for it. Snowflakes, wusses. They're afraid of him. And so they are literally creating a precedent in this here democracy that says if you indict somebody, then your case is so strong you don't need witnesses at the trial, because they know these witnesses have a dirty, disgusting, devastating story to tell. And you know who else knows it? And this is really twisted. The lead defense attorney, Pat Cipollone, is a material witness in the case against Donald Trump. He's a witness, and he's lying to this body, this legislative body that has been convened as a court by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He convenes the Senate every day as a court. And Cipollone is lying to the court, which I told you is a violation of the Code of Ethics and Conduct. But he's lying to the court, and he's a material witness, meaning he was in that meeting. That is in the New York Times story that broke this afternoon. Cipollone was in the meeting with Bolton. He was in the meeting with Bolton, Giuliani, Mick Mulvaney, Cipollone. Every senior White House person was in that meeting, including the lead lawyer for the president. So that makes him a witness to John Bolton's testimony. You know how off the hook this is? Do you have any idea? And that the Supreme Court justice sits mute is just stunning. Really, it's just stunning. But in this meeting, here's what happened. This is according to the writing of John Bolton. He said, Mr. Trump gave the instruction during an Oval Office conversation in early May that included acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, the president's personal lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, and White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, who is now leading the defense, which makes him a material witness because in this meeting, Donald Trump tells John Bolton to call Zelensky to ensure that Zelensky would meet with Rudy Giuliani, who was planning this trip to Ukraine to get the dirt and the announcement of the investigations against Hunter Biden. Bolton never made that call because he goes on to say that that directive would be a violation of the national security of the United States, and that he wasn't going to be part of a drug deal and the word that he used, this is how he described it. Mr. Trump is seeking to harness the power of the United States government to advance his pressure campaign against Ukraine, as he later did on the July call with Mr. Zelensky that triggered the whistleblower complaint and impeachment proceedings. Mr. Bolton's manuscript portrays the most senior White House advisors as early witnesses in the effort that they have sought to distance the president from. The disclosure of this meeting underscores the information that Democrats are seeking in testimony from top advisors to Donald Trump. Mr. Bolton and Mr. Mulvaney, obviously Cipollone. Bolton describes a 10-minute conversation, which, by the way, is, if the president, you'll know if the president is turning into Joseph Goebbels if Bolton's book is blocked, meaning if Bolton's book is censored and it's never released. Not that I wish him well with the sales of his book. I just don't. But if the president of the United States censors the release of this book, you'll know exactly at what point in past history we are. But Bolton lays out Trump's fixation on Ukraine and Trump's belief, based on scattershot events, assertions by crazy people like Fruman and indicted Parnas and Rudy Giuliani, and outright conspiracy theories that it was Ukraine that tried to undermine him in the 2016 election. Now think about what I just said, okay? If Trump still believes this, which obviously he does, is he going to give Ukraine to Russia? I mean, really, what is he going to do to Ukraine if he gets away with this? That's the first thing. The second thing is, does this now mean that all of us can be indicted and face trials, that some prosecutor is going to be able to assert the precedent of U.S. v. Trump and say, well, there were no witnesses in that case, so who says that witnesses are part of a fair trial? Who says that? This is America, and we have precedent. And precedent says you don't have to present witnesses. Bolton goes on to say that he was granting favors to autocratic leaders, and, that the idea that somehow testifying to what you think is true is destructive to the system of government we have, I think is nearly the reverse.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Eternal Lord God, you have summarized ethical behavior in a single sentence. Do for others what you would like them to do for you. Remind our senators that they alone are accountable to you for their conduct. Lord, help them to remember that they can't ignore you and get away with it. For we always reap what we sow. Have your way, mighty God. You are the potter, our senators, and we are the clay. Mold and make us after your will. Stand up, omnipotent God. Stretch yourself and let this nation and world know that you alone are sovereign. I pray in the name of Jesus.
Oh.
Amen.
Amen.
I am the chosen one.
That's the chaplain. That's the word I was groping for yesterday. The chaplain, Barry Black. His prayers have been amazing. Amazing. And I've been praying right along with him. I really have. I have been praying right along with him. And that was today's opening prayer. Brother David.
Oh, sister, we are all praying. We're lighting candles. It is a time. Yeah, his prayers have been amazing. Yeah. Wow. It's so, shout out to the chat room. You know what to do. Tell everyone to go to randirhodes.com and get 10 people who don't listen to listen. There, I've done my duty. The thing is, and you're dead on, I've been thinking about this too, the whole precedent of trials without witnesses. But it's short-term thinking. It was short-term thinking when McConnell blocked Merrick Garland without so much as a vote. What happens when there's a Republican president and we do have a Democratic Senate? What happens when it decides that, well, I am omnipotent, and there was Russian, which he's trying to claim, Ukrainian interference in the last election? Well, now we're just going to demand interference in the upcoming election. It's very scary. It's very scary, slippery slope. And at this point, it's vote and pray and get your passport up to date.
Exactly. I mean, he is, look, when Donald Trump was running and the primary was ongoing, it was very obvious to me that he had broken the Republican Party. There was no more Republican Party. Yeah. Well, then he got elected through the insanity that we call the Electoral College, even though the majority of Americans did not vote for him. And he became the party of Trump. The Republican Party ceased to exist, and the party of Trump was born. The party of Trump is a party that doesn't want to go to Congress. It doesn't want to get appropriations. It wants to rule by decree. It wants to keep a permanent Republican majority or a permanent Trumpian majority. And these Republicans have had this wet dream, and this has been the long, long slog into Gomorrah, where all the other parties are irrelevant because the Republicans cheat so hard and so long that there's no chance to ever have anything but Republican rule. Now, they're all going to be sorry in this way. He is not a benevolent dictator, okay?
Oh, no.
Right, and so he is not going to create a Republican majority forever. He's going to create a Trumpian majority forever, and that means his daughter and his son and Jared. Bingo. Right, and they're going to be so freaking sorry.
Yeah, it's true.
I know.
The House will. It's as you said weeks ago. There is a fracture, and a House divided against itself cannot stand. Well, a party that is not only divided against itself, but is non-existent. It doesn't exist. There's nothing there to turn to.
I'm trying to figure out the right comparison in history. Is this the Senate of Rome, where Caesar betrays all the people and becomes a benevolent dictator, or is this the Nazi Party? And I don't know which is more.
It's a little bit of each, actually, and that's really, really, really disturbing.
Well, that's why I'm waiting to see if he censors Bolton's book by saying that, you can't release this because there's classified information. Now, John Bolton has written 6 books. All of those are, books I would virulently
not have anything to do with.
I would object to. Okay.
Yeah.
But I would never say don't publish. Now, if the president censors Bolton's book by claiming that John Bolton's previous 6 books, which contain zero classified information, but that this one does, and censors the book that way, we're screwed. I don't even know what to say. That's the end of it. It's the end. It's the end of free speech.
Absolutely. And it's just like the counsel, who's also a material witness. An ethical lawyer, and I realize the word ethics is a total oxymoron with this crew, but an ethical lawyer would have recused himself. I can't represent him in trial because I was present. Even
I
if he
was
didn't
in the
say he was
meeting.
present.
Right, I was in the meeting. Right, and I know
total conflict of interest.
And also, I know when the pressure campaign on Ukraine began because I was in the meeting. It was early May, and they've been covering this up through the whole trial.
Right. And
I mean,
just as early as yeah.
This is the end of due process. This is the end of trials. This is the end. If they censor Bolton's book, it's the end of free speech. Because again, I explained to you, free speech isn't something that does. Here, free speech is a protection you have against government intrusion. Meaning the government can't retaliate against you because you disagree with the president or you disagree with the Senate or you disagree. Right? This is how I'm allowed to broadcast. This is how everybody is allowed to broadcast. The government can't censor us. Okay? But if this happens here, say goodbye to all of us. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if some of us were arrested at this point. I really wouldn't. Or smeared so badly that we just can't keep up with it. Look, they went after this ambassador and no protection from the State Department, Mike Pompeo. No protection for her. And he lied about it to the American people. No one ever asked me to. That's a lie. We know that's a lie. And now they've been smearing John Bolton, obviously. And so if they refuse to release his book, just know that I don't know that I occupy so much space in anybody's head in Washington anymore. I used to. But say goodbye to anybody that they fixate on that is, occupying their minds with, well, they speak badly against Trump. Say goodbye. Say goodbye to every news outlet. I mean, he's been going after the press forever. So that's all there at risk.
Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
Here's Chris Christie telling you exactly what I told you yesterday about what the Republican senators are so frightened of.
You could very well see the president encouraging or creating primaries against senators that are up this year if they went and voted the other way. I could definitely see him attempting to do that.
That's it? That's it? Kids like me become your cannon fodder to protect the Constitution of the United States, to protect national security of the United States, to protect our neighbors, to protect our families. And senators are afraid that they might have to, fight for their office, that somebody would stand on a stage and dare to debate them about why they may be better for the state. Seriously? That's what these snowflakes are afraid of?
So I repeat again. The senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin. I yield the floor.
From the grave, the words of wisdom, John McCain. The senator from Kentucky seems to be working for Vladimir Putin. You want to hear that again? Okay, I'll play it.
So I repeat again. The senator from Kentucky is now working for Vladimir Putin. I yield the floor.
Joe in New Mexico.
Hey, Randy, how's it going?
Good.
When it comes to courage, my dad, at the age of 16, enlisted during World War II, needed his mom's special permission. He was a gunner on a naval ship that was hit by a kamikaze pilot, and these people are just so spineless.
Spineless.
But anyway, my point is that, I really feel that Joe and Hunter should have stepped up, because look where we are. And the thing is that our Democratic Party is trying to save checks and balances and our democracy and so forth. And Joe Biden is just running around campaigning. Yes, he made an ad, a TV ad, but you know what? That's a joke.
Well,
he had a duty.
I don't know.
He had to show leadership.
But a duty to do what? I mean, he has no relevant information.
Well, you're right. It was not. He didn't have relevant information. But you know what? We needed to call their bluff. We needed to just play their game and make them look as horrible as they are.
I see. You're saying Joe Biden should have said, "I'll testify."
I'll testify at the last minute. Sure. It would have delayed and it would have stalled their, it would have stalled them a bit.
It wouldn't stall them. What it would do was it would just take one argument away from them. But they would still be making the crazy argument that Dershowitz made, and that is, if the president feels that his election is in the national interest, it doesn't matter if he does corrupt things in order to cement that. You know, I mean, this was the most insane anti-American, anti-patriotic, anti-democratic argument I'd ever heard in my life. And you know what's so interesting? Every lawyer around Donald Trump, the whole D list of lawyers that are around him, they are all complicit in some way or another with the life of Donald Trump on the wrong side of the law. Either with, Jeffrey Epstein, or defending, Donald Trump, or arguing that the Constitution somehow provides that the President of the United States can do corrupt things if he thinks it's in the best interest of the country. Where in the But they're all connected. They're all connected one way or another to Rudy Giuliani or to Lev Parnas or to Igor Fruman, or Pat Cipollone was in the meeting with Bolton. And I mean, it's such a small D list that's left of corrupt and criminal people.
Yep, you said it.
So
well, thanks, Randy.
You're welcome. So I guess, Joe Biden could have said, hey, the hell with it. I'll testify. I don't give a damn. I don't care. I have no relevant information about the president's behavior in May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December of last year. I was on the campaign trail. But if you want me to, say that I'll testify, yeah, I'll testify. He could have. But all that would have done was take away one of their stupid arguments. But they're all stupid arguments. Their argument is, if you're indicted, then you don't need witnesses at a trial because the indictment alone means you're guilty. What the oh, my God. Zoe in California.
Oh, thank you, Randy. I've been on the phone for probably a good half hour. I just want to say some important things. Number one, you must listen to Adam Schiff's last speech that he gave. He referred to John Adams, and that speech will be remembered. As a matter of fact, I would encourage Adam Schiff to write a book, because I will be the first one to buy it. The other thing I want to say, though, is I challenge the players in the Super Bowl to get on their knees and cancel their game and support those of us that are feeling like we're going through a funeral right now for democracy. I really think so, because these Republicans and this Senate are all probably with bets on the games. Oh. And everybody's going to make money, and we'll have a big party. And then the president, so-called president, on Tuesday will give his State of the Union. I am sick of all of this.
You skipped something. On Super Bowl Sunday, the president is going to be with Sean Hannity ahead of the game, sitting down and gloating about how he...
Well, that would even be better. How he walk out.
How he defeated democracy.
Let them all walk out in the name of Kobe Bryant. Let that be.
That doesn't connect.
It does connect. For me, it does.
Well,
because
it doesn't.
In his memory, he was a good man.
He was a good man.
And he was an honest man. And we watched him grow up and learn to be a team member. I would definitely recommend it. I know there's a lot of money tied up in that game, but if I was a player, I would put my knee down. I would not show up in the memory of another great athlete.
Yeah, but that's why you're not a player.
Well, I guess not.
Right.
But you know what? We've got to do something, because this is not the country of Donald Trump. It is the country, like John McCain said, it is the country of Putin. He owes Putin something.
Well, here's the thing.
He has signed us over to Putin.
Well,
and you know what? I live in California.
Uh-huh.
My biggest fear is that he's promised California to Putin.
What?
That is a fear that I have.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, Scotland, I saw something on the Twitter last night that broke my heart. Today is the last day for the European Union. It doesn't exist after today. And last night in the Scottish Parliament, And Scotland wanted to stay in the EU. They didn't want to see Brexit. They were like 60%, more than 60%, wanted to stay in the EU. And last night in Scotland, you could see this gave me chills. This is their parliament. This is their parliament. Okay, last night. The saddest, most chilling thing. It's like people singing. I know. Don't you get chills from that? It is people singing goodbye to democracy, to old acquaintances, to being part of the UK and the EU, and oh my God! And this is the autocrats of the world that are literally breaking up alliances in this world that have kept Europe and America and Canada safe for 70 years. This is all an attack on democracy and democratic principles and ideals. It's just a complete and utter demolition of small d democracy. Ugh. Kathy in Oregon.
Oh, hi.
Hey.
Well, after that, what I'm going to say is pretty trivial, but I just wanted to comment on the fellow who said, the Biden should have stepped up. I wouldn't play into their hands, because remember about Benghazi, remember about the emails. There was no reasoning with them. It was one, they just never ended. You can look them in the face and have, the facts, and they won't listen.
Well, here's the thing. An election between Trump and Biden is going to be a complete replay of an election between Hillary and Trump. I mean, complete. Biden is the crook. We want Biden's documents. We want Biden's son. Biden this, Biden that. I mean, it's. They're going to start an investigation into a political investigation into Joe Biden with absolutely no legal permission. No legal reason. So prepare yourself.
Mary had a little lamb.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon.
I have a dream today.
Change has come to America.
Believe me. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
There is no limiting principle to the argument that we heard last night from the president's team. That is, if there's a quid pro quo that the president believes will help him get reelected,
oh my God,
and he believes his reelection is in the national interest, then it doesn't matter how corrupt that quid pro quo is. Wow. It's astonishing that on the floor of this body someone would make that argument. Now, it didn't begin that way in the beginning of the president's defense, but what we have seen over the last couple of days is a descent into constitutional madness.
Thank you.
Because that way madness lies. If we are to accept the premise that a president essentially can do whatever he wants, engage in whatever quid pro quo he wants, I will give you this if you will give me that to help me get elected. I will give you military dollars if you will give me help in my reelection. If you will give me illicit foreign interference in our election. Now, the only reason you make that argument is because you know your client is guilty and dead to rights. That is an argument made of desperation.
Oh!
He's right. He's right. And they're desperate to keep evidence away from the American people's eyes and ears. That's all it is. I mean, you have to understand you've already given up freedom here because the senators are deciding for you what you can and what you will not hear. They are deciding for you whether or not you can hear the entire story of Donald Trump's lunacy, whether or not you can hear that Donald Trump literally, for his own personal benefit, went after a political opponent with using your military aid, our tax dollars that he had signed into law. He had signed it. I mean, and Schiff is saying, you would think we would have learned something from 50 years ago when Richard Nixon said, well, if the president does it, that means it's not illegal. And he said, we learned nothing. And in fact, we're worse off now.
Now, what's so striking to me is almost half a century ago, we had a president who said, well, when the president does it, that means it is not illegal. That, of course, was Richard Nixon. Watergate is now 40 to 50 years behind us. Have we learned nothing in the last half century? Have we learned nothing at all? It seems like we're back to where we were. The president says it, it's not illegal. Or Donald Trump's version, under Article 2, I can do whatever I want. Or Professor Dershowitz's point, if the president believes it helps his reelection, it is therefore in the national interest. He can do whatever he wants. In fact, much as we thought that we progressed post-Watergate and we enacted Watergate reforms and we tried to insulate the Justice Department from interference by the presidency, we tried to put an end to the political abuses of that department, as much as we thought we enacted campaign finance reforms, we are right back to where we were half a century ago, and I would argue we may be in a worse place because this time, that argument may succeed.
Wow. They've been chipping away at all of the things that make us safe, that make us free, that make us fair, that make us good, that make us, have recourse. And this time it could succeed. With Bill Barr, can you imagine the FBI becoming the FBI of Hoover again? Listening in on phone calls, reading mail, reading email, going after political opponents. Honestly, smearing people for no reason except they disagree with you, and the FBI being able to indict people that disagree with President Trump. And no trial because we don't need one. If your indictment is so strong, try it without witnesses. I mean, we are literally normalizing lawlessness.
That argument, if the president says it can't be illegal, failed. And Richard Nixon was forced to resign. But that argument may succeed here, now. That means we're not back to where we are. We are worse off than where we are. That is the normalization of lawlessness. I would hope that every American would recognize that it's wrong to seek foreign help in an American election, that Americans should decide American elections. I would hope, and I believe, that every American understands that, and every American understands that's true for Democratic presidents and Republican ones. I would hope that we would understand it. I would hope that this trial would be one conducive of the truth. The senator asked what witnesses could shed light on when the president ordered the hold and why. Well, we know Mick Mulvaney would. That instruction came from OMB. You remember the testimony of Ambassador Taylor, the shock that went through the National Security Council and the shock he experienced in that video conference when it was first announced. Yeah. And the instruction was, this comes through the president's chief of staff, OMB, but it's a direct order from the president. Well, Mick Mulvaney knows when that order went into place, and he knows why that order went into place, and he made that statement publicly, which he now wishes to recant. I'm sure he got an earful from the president after he did. Mm-hmm. But apparently it doesn't matter. None of that matters. Because if the president believes it's his interest, it's okay. Now, there was an argument also, well, what if it was a credible reason? Of course, there's no evidence that this was a credible reason to investigate the president's rival, but let's say it was a credible reason. Does that make it right? What president is not going to think he has a credible reason to investigate his opponent? What president is going to think he doesn't have a credible reason or wouldn't be able to articulate one or come up with some fig leaf? They compounded the dangerous argument that they made that no quid pro quo is too corrupt if you think it'll help your election. They compounded it by saying, and if what you want is targeting your rival, it's even more legitimate. That way, madness lies.
That way, madness lies. Because, remember, the President of the United States started shaking down and extorting Ukraine the day after Mueller testified. Because the president believed that Mueller was an old, feeble man who wasn't able to testify successfully enough to convince anybody who thought that, the president had every right to ask Russia to hack into the DNC. Mueller wasn't able to sell that to the American people on the TV. And Donald Trump decides your value by how well you do on the TV. And so the very next day, Mueller testified on the 24th of July. On July 25th, Donald Trump picks up a phone and starts telling Zelensky in code, because Zelensky already knew, because this was already in the works, and Rudy Giuliani had already demanded an announcement of investigations into the Bidens as early as May. So after Mueller testifies, now the day after, the president picks up the phone and tells Zelensky, I don't feel that what you're doing is reciprocal. So I need you to look into this CrowdStrike. I think Ukraine has the server. And I also need you to look into the Bidens, because he's emboldened. He feels strong now. And he's going to shake down yet another country. He's going to take foreign help from another country or extort another country into giving him foreign help so that he can run the same campaign he ran against Hillary, the lock her up campaign, against Joe Biden. That's all this was about. He wants to run on a lock him up campaign against Joe Biden. Now, obviously, his children benefit off of his presidency in a way that we've never seen before. But somehow he wants to run that lock him up campaign, and Joe Biden is guilty of that.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
He got on the phone with Zelensky asking for this favor the day after Bob Mueller testifies. What do you think he will be capable of doing the day after he's acquitted here?
Oh, my God.
The day after he feels, I dodged another bullet. I really am beyond the reach of the law. My attorney general says I can't be indicted. I can't even be investigated. He closed the investigation into this matter before he even opened it. And I can't be impeached either. I got the best of both worlds. I got Bill Barr saying I can't be investigated. I can't be prosecuted. I can be impeached, however. That's what Bill Barr says. But I've got other lawyers that say I can't be impeached. That's a recipe for a president who is above the law. That only is not required by the Constitution, quite the contrary. The founders knew, coming from a monarchy, that if they were going to give extraordinary powers to their new executive, they needed an extraordinary constraint. They needed a constraint commensurate with the evil which they sought to contain.
Chris in Massachusetts.
Yeah, hi, Randi.
Hi, Chris.
Thanks for taking my call.
It's what I live for.
Yeah, I followed this fiasco for the past 3 years, and, I don't know all the specifics and, can name everybody, but I believe that the one area that has not really received adequate attention is the fact that Donald Trump is a mentally ill person.
Yep.
Our country, elected a very mentally ill person. okay? And apparently our Constitution and the Founding Fathers didn't include anything to deal with what do you do when you have a mentally ill person leading the country? What do you do, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's got the nuclear codes.
Yeah.
The nuclear codes.
Yeah, I'm more fearful of what he's doing to our justice system. I'm more fearful of what he's doing to free speech. I'm more fearful of the literal destruction of democracy, small d democracy.
Yeah.
That, you know, I don't think he's gonna, you know, nuke anybody. But I do think that he has all the ability to censor people and to propagandize and to divide this country so badly that people can't even, unify around the Constitution and what it actually requires of a president. And that is not to be corrupt, not to have corrupt intent in your election, not to take foreign money in your election, not to be a king. Yeah. That's what I'm more fearful of with his particular brand of narcissism. I mean, he's a malignant narcissist, is what his mental illness is.
And, you know, his brain is not wired like a normal person.
No, he's a malignant narcissist, meaning all he cares about is himself and his own elevation in this world. Everybody else can just eat it. Everybody else should go to hell.
Yes. Yeah. But going forward, if we ever get out of this mess, maybe before someone becomes president of the United States, they should have 3 independent psyche valves done. You know?
Well, that's
the physical by their own physician.
That's
hey,
not. That's
how
not.
well is your brain wired?
Yeah, that's not in the Constitution either.
Your...
So yeah, I know. People are frustrated, but try and stay in the realm of what is possible. All right, Ron in California.
Good morning. Good afternoon, Randy.
Hey.
Is there any doubt at all that everybody can see that everyone in the Congress on the right and in the Senate is awash with Russian money? These Republicans, these fascist Republicans, have no dignity, no honor. I think that the ghost of McCarthy is screaming up and down the hall saying, I couldn't believe it's my own party.
They're only interested in keeping power. That's it. That's all they're interested in. And that's all Donald Trump is interested in. It's all Mitch McConnell is interested in. And it's all that the Republican majority in the Senate is interested in. That's where we are.
A culmination of 100
and
years.
You know, maybe now people understand the expression by hook or by crook. Okay, they want to keep power by hook or by crook.
I think this is a combination of 100 years of corrupt faction-led party, that will go anywhere the money is, and now they're awash in Russian money.
Oh well, I think they finally understand that American dollars, American billionaires are giving as much as they possibly can to favor them and to keep the distribution of wealth at the very, very top and keep it out of the hands of the unwashed masses. But now they see an entire world emerging, a world of Chinese money, 1 billion consumers, a world of, Indian money, another 1 billion consumers, a world of, natural gas money. So, they're saying, well, why should we limit ourselves to just our billionaires when we can go trolling for cash all around the world? All we have to do is say to the billionaires, the oligarchs, the autocrats, don't worry, the unwashed masses will be fed a steady line of propaganda that Donald Trump is the greatest, that he is the state, and they, don't need freedom of speech. They don't need freedom of movement. And if you speak out against Donald Trump, we'll arrest you. And some of these bullies that we live with and we share this democracy with, they're all for it. They want to see their fellow Americans arrested and tortured and terrorized because they want to be the Volk. They want to be the chosen people.
Without the Constitution, I think it's just inevitable that 2 giant oligarchies would get together under a faction corrupt party. Without the Constitution, these are like 2 giant magnets coming together.
Yeah, it is. This is terrible.
2 giant oligarchies just completely destroying the world. I can't believe it. I'm a big fan
Well,
of
you
jazz.
got to realize
I can't
this. You have to realize this, okay? The entire petrochemical, well, not chemical, I shouldn't say chemical, but the entire, all the
oil garden.
The oil, well, all the petro-dollars, and it's not just oil; it's natural gas now too. Okay, the fossil fuel oligarchs, right?
I call it an oligarchy. I've been calling it that for 30 years.
So they are in their death throes. So if you can think about it this way, a fierce animal, a carnivore, is a fierce competitor in the jungle. But when that fierce carnivore is wounded and in its last death throes, it's even more dangerous. And
I get it.
And that's where they are.
Yeah, but we invented the air car, and people should know that the air car is the future, not.
Just know they're in their death throes, and they are vicious right now, okay? I don't need to go into that. Please keep your eye on what is possible. Thank you very much. This is really crunch time, people. I know I'm very calm about it because it is my duty to explain it as calmly and without panic as I can. But we are at crunch time now.
Clear. 4. Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Wonderful cows. I love cows. They want to kill our cows. You know why, right? You know why? Don't say it. They want to kill our cows. That means you're next. And they want to wipe out totally Iowa ethanol. They want to wipe it out.
All of this effort to cover up for that man, for a patently, ridiculously stupid, self-serving piece of dung. Why would they do it? Why would they do it? Well, go back to Grover Norquist. Remember him from, the never raise the tax ever, never do that. Grover Norquist and that whole, right-wing lunacy about freedom crackers and the deficit so high. And now they don't care. But the whole thing is about keeping a Republican majority forever. Well, there is no Republican Party. Now there's only the party of Trump, and they think that that's fine. That's the next best thing to a real Republican Party is the party of Trump because he is legitimately interested in holding power so much that all he needs to do is sit up in a chair and sign tax legislation that redistributes all the wealth back up the food chain. All the way, so that we're back in like 1929 when everything fell apart. And it did in 2008 too. And for people going, oh, my 401k is doing really, really well. You know what? If it didn't crash under Bush, if we didn't have Republican rule all those years under W, you would have had 40% more. 40% more. Short-sighted little freaks you are. Peter in California.
It's Pete, but anyway.
Oh, okay. My brother-in-law's Peter. Hi, Peter.
Okay. I don't know this, but I'm sure you would. How many Republican senators are up for re-election come November?
20.
Okay. Why don't the managers address those 20 and say, even if you're cravenly interested in your own power, think of it logically that if you vote against witnesses, and 75% of the public wants witnesses, you don't stand much chance of retaining your power in November. So it's actually in your own self-interest as well as the moral interest for you to vote to have witnesses.
Well, here's the reality. This is what happens, okay? So Mitch McConnell takes them into a meeting, and he shows them internal polling in their states, because they have to run statewide, senators do. And they say, all right, now, Susan Collins is in trouble in Maine, okay? She's got a real challenge there, so we'll give her the hall pass. She can vote for witnesses, okay? Mitt Romney, there's no moving him. He'll get reelected in Iowa no matter what, and he's not even on the ballot. But so we'll give him a hall pass because he's going to vote for witnesses no matter what I say, because he's not in danger. Okay, but I don't know. I guess Lamar Alexander, who isn't even running, I guess they promised him some money for a foundation or some money for a library at Vanderbilt, which is his college where he went. It's his alma mater. I don't know what they promised him, but they promised him something, right? And so Mitch McConnell is literally dealing in the smoky back room. They say, oh, drain the swamp. But, well, this is the swamp. And he's making deals, and he's telling others, you're safe in your state. Don't you worry, like Kristen Sinema or Cory Gardner. He's showing them internal polling, saying, if you vote against the president, you're cooked, because every Republican that was polled is behind Donald Trump.
And the voters won't have a reaction against them voting the wrong way?
We'll have to see. But here's the thing. So now we faced a rigged election. Now we really have to wonder, where the fix is coming from, because all bets are off now.
Anyway, it's a hell of a situation.
It's a hell of a situation. It's really bad. But listen, there is one last chance, and that is the elections. That is. Mm-hmm. And they're only 8 months away. And if people are outraged and sickened at the loss of democracy, if people are outraged and sickened by this president's, craziness, if they're outraged and sickened by something called a trial that has no relationship to anything anybody ever saw, heard, or knows a trial is, maybe we can actually do something about it in November. And that's so I'm saying to people now, go ahead and apply for your passport, especially, people who aren't young, because it's difficult for us, to fight the next fight, because we fought the previous ones for you. So now it's up to you, right? So we'll get out of your way. We'll go. But we're going to stay until the election is over, and then we'll figure out, where we are. And if we have to go, we got the papers, we can get out of here.
My wife and I recently got ours.
Yeah, I have mine.
And the picture is horrible, I must say.
Oh, my picture's terrible, too. Oh, terrible. Terrible. Yeah. But it's worth it. Howard in New York. May I help you? How may I direct your call? Yes.
My name is Howard Richard. I was just listening to your free speech, and I would just like to say that I feel Trump is guilty, and that I feel like the gerrymandering and all that other BS that shouldn't even be in play.
Right. So basically, just to connect your dots, because they're good, they're right. When the Republicans decided to do a 50-state strategy to take all of the states' legislatures, they did it because they understood gerrymandering could then occur to suppress or divide votes so that they could guarantee themselves Republican majorities in the House. Okay, this is what they thought. And now they're doing it for the rest of the government. So this is all about power. It has nothing to do with democracy. It has nothing to do with right and wrong. It has nothing to do with, Lady Liberty or justice is blind. No man is above the law. These little things that we used to feel comfortable with, knowing in the end, that democracy would win. It's been a long slog toward dismantling it. And we are at the precipice. We're right there. Where literally you have senators who are willing to vote for a trial with no witnesses. I mean, just think about that. That is crazy. And these are the same people that did impeach Bill Clinton for lying about a private sexual affair, which every single man in this country, if he got caught, would do. somehow that was an abuse of trust. All right. Because he lied. All right. But for this president, actual corruption, fine. As long as we stay in power, fine.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, I need to listen into the TV right now because a crucial vote is imminent. They have
vote on the witness. So the fact that the Democrats know they're going to lose this.
I'm listening to it.
This is their chance. This is their last chance.
This is the last
to delay
time
the
they have any
process.
leverage.
And this was the plan. Now,
well,
another thing
someone
Mitch
made a
McConnell
mistake here.
Right. Well, another thing Mitch
drafting
McConnell
this.
has to
What?
think about, don't forget,
Something happened.
is the White House. Now, I don't know if you could see what the White House lawyers are doing right now, but you have a president who wants to get this done.
Yeah.
He wants to get it over with, particularly by the
Before
State
the
of the Union
on Tuesday.
but also maybe he wanted it done by the Super Bowl. Yeah. And that doesn't look likely at this point.
Because he's doing an interview during the Super Bowl.
Doing an interview.
Right.
Yeah, I
But you
understand.
notice,
But what is
you
going
notice
on?
that there are no White House lawyers anywhere near McConnell.
Right.
And the reason for that is this
They don't
is
wanna
Sen-
look
this
like
is
Baron
no.
Cahoots.
This is
Senate
the
business.
Senate prerogative.
Right. This is Senate
not.
so,
They're not going to say a word to McConnell.
So what Chuck Schumer is saying, look, we have our opportunity now to offer these amendments. You have a bunch of people who want to talk, and you have a bunch of people who want to go home.
And you got a bunch of people who
and
want
you
to go
got
to
a
Iowa.
president, and you have, and then he says you have a bunch of people who want to go to Iowa,
lots
and
of
you have a
conflicting
president who wants to get this over
The key is, as Senator Santorum said, and I want to bring in Jeff Toobin to get his take on this, Senator Santorum and Alan Fruman. The key is because the legislation for this whole Senate trial was written in such a way that this is now the only time the Democrats have leverage over the process. Alan Fruman, let me just bring you back for 1 second before we go
Alan
to Toobin.
Fruman used to be the Senate
What
parliamentarian,
does that mean?
so he knows all the
Democrats
rules.
could theoretically gum up the works for as long as possible by just offering amendment after amendment, and each amendment gets 2 hours debate. And the Republicans obviously want to avoid that. Frankly, there's some Democrats that would like to avoid that as well, especially 4 who are running for president and would like to go to Iowa as soon as possible. So what does this mean? What are they? They're trying to exact some sort of agreement here, more favorable to their terms than they would ever be able to get at any other time?
No doubt a lot of senators would like to avoid that. The issue here is dealing with those senators who want to take advantage of this opportunity for amendments at this stage, which by the terms of this resolution do not appear to have an enforceable limit.
Okay. Thank you, Alan Fruman. I mean, if everybody would just shut up and let the parliamentarian speak, I could take it from there. What's going on is both sides have finished all the arguments. Okay? They're done. And so now they're going to take the vote about whether or not to have witnesses. But when the rules for the trial were written by Mitch McConnell, apparently he forgot to put an end to the debate and allowed for amendments to be introduced before the final vote. And each amendment, as you've seen before, gets 2 hours of debate. Every amendment is up for debate because it's the freaking Senate. And so Chuck Schumer is going to introduce amendment after amendment after amendment and each time he does, there will be 2 hours of debate. Now, why would they do this? Talking heads are going to tell you, well, there's senators that want to go back to Iowa, Bernie Sanders wants to go back to Iowa, and Elizabeth Warren wants to go back to Iowa, and Klobuchar wants to go back. Yeah, that's true. But you know what? I think they care about their democracy more. Just saying. So throw that out. What they're doing is they're waiting for John Bolton to grow a pair. They're waiting for him to do some sort of a press conference. They're waiting for more information from Lev Parnas, more tapes, more audio tapes, more videotapes. They're waiting for more evidence because when Nancy Pelosi didn't send the articles over, because it was Christmas time anyway, and she had nothing to lose by waiting till after the 2.5 half-week Christmas break to send the indictment over to the Senate, we saw all kinds of news breaking, all kinds of evidence being given sunlight. And we got Lev Parnas interviewing with Rachel Maddow. We got Lev Parnas interviewing with Anderson Cooper. We got videotapes, audio tapes, more text messages. We got more and more and more evidence on Rudy Giuliani and what he did. And Lev Parnas being able to prove it. And more documents from FOIA, Freedom of Information Act requests came to light, right? So that's what they're doing. They're going to delay the final vote on witnesses with the amendment process, which gives 2 hours of debate to each and every one of them before the final vote on witnesses, hoping that John Bolton will come forward and give some sort of a freaking press conference and tell the American people that Cipollone is a material witness in this case and he had no right to argue it, and to lie to the body, which was convened as a court. And he knows better. He knows the truth because he was sitting next to me. That's what they're doing. They're going to delay. They're going to delay. And I'll tell you what, it's not a bad strategy because of everything that's hanging in the balance. But I'm just going to leave you with this. This is Donald Trump when asked about Lev Parnas.
Well, I don't know him. I don't know Parnas other than I guess I had pictures taken, which I do with thousands of people, including people today that I didn't meet, but just met him. I don't know him at all. Don't know what he's about. Don't know where he comes from. Know nothing about him. I can only tell you this thing is a big hoax. It's a big hoax. We call it, this is the current hoax. We've gone through the Russian.
Okay, he doesn't know him. He doesn't know it. It's all a hoax. It's all a hoax. Well, yesterday, Lev Parnas, through his attorney, Mr. Bondi, released yet another piece of video evidence. This particular piece is Ronna McDaniel, who is the head of the RNC, all right, going to a dinner. The president is also going to be led into the room. Lev Parnas, Igor Fruman, again meeting the president, again in a private, small dinner setting where Ronna McDaniel, you'll hear at the beginning of this, is going to say, "Oh, no, I know you. It's good to see you again. I'm so glad you're here." Now, this little name tag is John DeStefano. He is the president's aide, close aide, right? So he's seated at the table. This is Ronna McDaniel arriving, and she immediately crosses the room to meet Igor Fruman.
Yeah, how are things? Good, good. I'm glad you're here. Have you been to Mar-a-Lago before? Yes. Yeah, well.
Yes.
Okay, well then, forget it.
Maybe we should have done it all together, right? But this is better. It's a little more intimate. It's nice to be with you. Thank you all. So we're doing very well. We just got our highest poll numbers this morning or yesterday evening. 52 and 8 or 9% of people that refuse to talk.
Refuse to talk.
So we have our best poll numbers. We didn't say it in the other room, Pete, but the generic poll. I'm not sure I believe in generic poll. I never heard of a generic poll until 6 months ago.
Great.
But we were 16 down when we were at Camp David, when we had a little meeting, which wasn't good. And now we're 2 down. You heard that.
Which puts us within the margin of error.
Yeah,
Which puts us in the margin of error. They're losing.
6, it's supposed to be okay. I don't know if I'm a believer in it. It's a
Okay, this was the head of the midterm elections, which they obviously lost, okay, the House. And this is Igor Fruman and Lev Parnas videotaping yet another intimate dinner with the President of the United States, who's sharing internal polling data with 2 guys who are funneling Russian money into his campaign, into Lindsey Graham's campaign, into Rick Scott's campaign, into the Republicans' campaigns, and is now indicted for doing that. But he is videotaping, check this out, the President of the United States repeatedly in private settings without any security. Without any pushback from Secret Service, from nothing. The president is completely exposed. Nobody on his staff has the intelligence to tell people to leave their phones or to not record the president or to turn their phone. I mean, it's so unbelievable. Can you imagine what the president has been recorded doing, saying, being? So that is what's going on. It looks to me like the Senate is not going to vote on witnesses, at least today. We'll have to wait and see how long they can do this. Now, it's Friday, right? And the Super Bowl is Sunday. And he's got to sit down with Sean Hannity, and he's going to be livid before the Super Bowl. There's this interview with lying sack of crap, dumb as a rock Sean Hannity, who is selling out this country as fast as he can. It's really sick. But Trump's going to be off the hook, man. He's going to be pissed if they don't vote today. And I don't think they will. So fingers crossed, everybody. Enjoy the Super Bowl. Can't wait to see the new Doritos commercial.